let's confine ourselves here to the 3 chord types that you're going to spend most of your time on when it comes to playing 7th chords. Those 3 chord types are major 7 chords, minor 7 chords, and dominant 7th chords. It really is helpful to understand how these work. So let's start by playing or writing here the triads that are going to form the foundation of these 7th chords. We're going to write in the key of C like we always do. When we build a major 7 chord, we start with a major triad. I have a C major triad here. If I add the major 7th of C to this triad, we get a C major 7 chord. And I'm going to play these examples for you, which I don't usually do. But what the heck. There's a C major 7 chord. If instead of a major 7, I put a minor 7 on top of that C major triad, I get a different chord sound. I get C7, which is the shorthand way of saying C dominant 7. Anytime you heard somebody say C7, what they actually meant was C dominant 7. We just don't usually say dominant, nor do we write it. But in order to do this, in order to put a minor 7th on top of this chord and have it fit the tablature, I can't really write it in the place that I've written it here, because this note where my cursor is going to need to be a B flat, and I can't do it on that string. So I'm going to move this triad to here. And now I've got a string where I can put a B flat here. Now, I'm not saying that's a playable chord shape, because unless you have truly enormous hands, you can't play this chord. But it's going to give us the sound that we want, and it's written correctly on the staff here. So let's compare these 2 sounds. First one was a C major 7 chord. This is a C dominant 7th chord, typically abbreviated to C7. Now we're going to have the same problem writing the next chord here. So we're going to move the location of this chord up to where the other one was. Make sure it's spelled correctly. If you have a minor triad, in this case I have a C minor triad, and I add a minor 7, that is what we know as a C minor 7 chord. C minor 7. C major 7, C7, C minor 7. 95% of the 7th chords you encounter are going to fall into one of these categories. Let's take a moment and translate this to the chord symbols that you're going to see, and make sure we understand some of the nomenclature standards for chord symbols. Chord nomenclature is important. By default, a chord symbol indicates a major triad. So if I write C as a chord symbol, it means C major. If I want to qualify that chord as minor, I need to put the M next to it. By default, a 7th written in a symbol is minor. If I want to qualify that 7th as being major, I have to put major in front of it. Therefore, if I write C7 with no qualifiers, by default, this means the C is major triad, the 7 is a minor 7. if I want to alter either of those qualifications, I have to add some nomenclature. If I want to write C minor triad, I have to put the small m here. If I want to write a C minor 7 chord, which means a minor triad with a minor 7th, I simply add the 7, because by default, the C is major. The qualifying small m here applies to the triad to qualify that and say this is actually a minor triad. The 7 by default is already minor, so I don't need to say anything about that 7th if I want a C minor 7 triad, or rather C minor 7th chord, I meant to say. Let's look at some other examples. If I want to write a C major 7 chord, I don't need to qualify the C triad as being major. By default, writing a C chord symbol means major triad. But if I want to put a major 7th on that chord, I do have to qualify that. So in this case, the major applies to the 7th, not the triad. C major triad with a major 7 is the chord symbol for a C major 7 chord. Let's look at some less common examples. If I want to write a minor triad with a major 7th, all right, this is not a terribly common chord sound, but it happens. Then I'm going to write C minor to qualify, actually I probably will just use M, C minor to qualify that I have a minor triad. And now, usually you'll see this written more as a superscript. I'm going to say M, A, oops. I'm going to say M, A, 7, because my 7th is not the default 7. It's a major 7, not the default minor 7. So if I want to indicate a minor triad with a major 7th, I have to qualify both sides of this equation. Let's look at another example, also not terribly common, but just to say we did it. If I want to write a C augmented 7th chord, in other words, a C augmented chord with a minor 7, then I'm just going to do this. C augmented 7. That means I have a C augmented triad with a minor 7th chord. That's actually not a terribly uncommon chord if you're playing jazz. You might see it notated differently. You might see this notated actually as a C7 sharp 5. Sometimes you see that in jazz notation. They're pretty much the same for our purposes. So hopefully that is the majority of the information that you need to make sense out of 7th chords. And like I said, we're leaving a lot out of this discussion simply because it's not really that commonly needed. Good luck.